You are at a co-working desk on Antonovica on a Thursday afternoon. The AC dead, killing time between freelance contracts when a GitHub repo hands you a voice model anyone can run on a cheap laptop. At the window, while it trains on 3 minutes of a German logistics CEO from a podcast, you watch a tram drag through the crossing and tell yourself you are only curious. Back in your chair, you type a sentence he never said and hear his voice say it cleanly enough to make your scalp tighten. At the coffee machine by the far wall, you pour a cup and leave it untouched while two designers argue behind you about a client, brief you stop hearing. In a phone booth near reception, you pull up the company's investor page, find the CFO assistant's name in a press release, and draft a transfer instruction in the CEO's voice. On the sidewalk outside the co-working space, you replay it through your earbuds while buses hiss past and realize the problem is not whether the clone works. The problem is that it works on the first day. You take the metro 2 stops home and stay on the platform after your stop while the next train comes in and leaves, because going upstairs feels like choosing something. In your kitchen with the overhead light off, you open the laptop on the table, type a second sentence, then a third, and hear the same calm authority every time. In the bathroom mirror, you tell yourself you have not done anything yet and watch your own mouth say it like a weak defense. In bed, an hour later, you stare at the ceiling and picture a finance office in Hamburg where nobody knows their CEO's voice now fits inside your hard drive. You spend 4 days building the call before you make it. At your kitchen table at 11 at night, you find the assistant's work email in a press release and cross-check her LinkedIn until you are sure Katrin still owns that inbox. In a library reading room on Saxe-Hanskaho the following afternoon, you map the target's org chart and payment flow from 2 years of investor calls. Outside the library at a tram shelter, you stand under the route map and decide a Hong Kong intermediary will sit inside their normal traffic if the amount is small enough to look routine. Back home that evening, you test the voice again, tighten the wording, and choose the exact counterparty name the CFO is least likely to question. On Tuesday morning, you are in a different co-working space across town, better light, clean VPN, model loaded. In the stairwell outside the shared kitchen, you run the cloned voice one last time on 4 fresh minutes of the CEO from a second podcast and hear how much cleaner the consonants land. At 7:42 from a phone booth near reception, you call the CFO's direct line, answer one question about the counterparty, hear him say he will action it now, and stay on the line 11 seconds after he hangs up. You close the laptop and walk out into the rain. 6 blocks away at a cash machine on a corner by Tolstoho Square, the number lands on the prepaid card and turns your stomach faster than the cold does. In a grocery vestibule, you stand dripping beside stacked water bottles and wait for panic that never fully arrives. You walk home, lie on the bed without eating, and stare at the ceiling until the room goes blue with evening. Then you roll back to the kitchen table, open the laptop, and start building the next one before the first wire has time to feel real. You recruit Andrei at a coffee shop on Kreschadik in February, 2 weeks after the second wire clears. He is 22, good at scraping data, and still thinks the job is digital marketing consulting, which is exactly where you leave it. Walking back through the slush toward Maiden, you define his role in your head with the precision of a hiring contract. Find executives with public audio longer than 90 seconds, map org charts, locate the weak link in each finance chain. At a basement cafe off Parisna the next week, you hand him cash in an envelope and watch him pocket it without asking what the client sells. Across 3 different districts over 3 mornings, you buy 12 SIM cards from kiosks and keep moving before any seller has time to remember your face. At a market stall in Pozniaki, you pay cash for a cheap handset and activate the first batch from a bench near the food court. In an electronics shop in Obolon, you buy 4 more phones and insist on separate receipts for each one. At a hotel business center on Shovkovichna one mid-afternoon, you access a forum through a VPN, find spoofing infrastructure in Lithuania, and register it to a shell company that has never consulted on anything. By March, you are renting a shared desk in Padil under a false name and using it twice a week, never on the same days. At that desk, the voice library grows from 2 clean profiles to 19. mostly German and Swiss, some British, 2 American. Back home in the evenings, you test each one on headphones, mark the bad artifacts, and feel your ear getting faster than your conscience. On a Tuesday night at the kitchen table, Andrei sends 14 new targets with usable public audio. You mark 9 green, send back a number, and realize the operation now has supply. You're at the desk in the Lipke apartment on a Tuesday morning in May with 63 active voice profiles open in the master sheet and 4 callback windows waiting on Elena. In a rented meeting room at a business hotel in Pechersk, you tell her exactly what she will cover and exactly what she will never be told. She is 31, ran telecom call centers in Kharkiv, stopped getting paid enough to care, and reads the rules faster than she reads your face. Walking back from the hotel along Sichnevy Povstania, you know she will work because she already understands that questions cost money. At a corner table in a Podil cafe, you sketch the structure in a notebook. Andrei researches from his flat. Elena handles callbacks from hers. You route everything through encrypted channels in 6 wallets before it touches anything with a name on it. In a currency exchange vestibule near Arsenalna, you test the chain with a small transfer and watch it reappear exactly where it should. Back in the Lipke apartment that night, you update the sheet and see how clean the system looks once every person does only one piece. On a Saturday morning at a cafe near Bezarabsky Market, you check the final May figure with a coffee cooling untouched in front of you. Outside on the pavement, you close the laptop and wait for the number to shock you. It does not. You take the metro to the Dnipro embankment, sit on a bench facing the river, and try to force the weight into your chest before the next train schedule pulls you home. The weight never arrives. On the ride back under the city, you stop calling this a phase and admit to yourself that it is a job. You find the grandparent method at the working desk in the Lipke apartment with a coffee gone cold beside the keyboard. The fraud board thread is blunt. Clone a grandchild's voice from 30 seconds of social video. Call the grandmother. Say you are in trouble. Ask for money. Tell her not to tell anyone. At the kitchen window, you do the math on the glass with your thumb and understand the appeal before the guilt can catch up. 4,000 average payout, 8-minute average call, volume far beyond corporate BEC. Back at the desk, you spend an hour building 7 profiles from TikTok clips and graduation videos ripped off public accounts. In the back bedroom the following Wednesday evening, you run the first 2 calls with the curtains shut and 1 lamp on the floor. Both work fast enough to feel procedural. At the kitchen counter, you log the payouts on junk mail and pull up the 3rd target, a 76-year-old woman in Ohio. From the hallway by the front door, you place the call and hear worry in her voice before you say a word. When she starts crying, you walk into the bathroom and keep the story steady. Grandson, accident, $3,000. Please do not call mom. At the sink, she gives you the wrong name. You correct it smoothly, and she says okay 3 times in a voice closer to surrender than fear. Back in the kitchen, you write down the MoneyGram details, say you love her, and end the call before your own voice slips. On the stairwell landing outside the apartment, you listen to somebody above you drag furniture across the floor and wait for disgust strong enough to stop you. It does not come. You go back to the desk, open the next file, and keep working until the room starts to lighten at the edges. You are in the lobby of a hotel in Warsaw on the 2nd morning of a 2-day bank trip when CNN publishes the story about a voice cloning kidnapping fraud in Arizona. You read the headline, stand up from the table, and leave your coffee untouched beside the hotel brochure rack. On the pavement outside, you read the rest while taxis pull in at the curb. A mother on the phone for 2 hours, a daughter asleep in a dorm room in Tucson, a method that now has a name on a national broadcast. 3 streets away in a media electronics shop, you buy 4 new SIM cards and a handset you will use once. At the airport gate that afternoon, you wipe 1 phone, destroy another, and decide the whole structure has to get smaller before the story reaches every fraud desk in Europe. Back in Kiev the next day, you drop every number active for more than 6 weeks and replace them in 1 session from the Lipke apartment. From a bench outside Golden Gate, you send Andrei 1 line about maintenance and nothing else. Elena gets 1 instruction from a new encrypted account while you stand in a pharmacy queue near Palat Sportu. No callbacks on any number active before August 15th. By night, you are carrying 2 bags into a sublet in Obolon. Corner unit, 8th floor, 2 exits from the stairwell. At the new desk, you go through every active file looking for exposure, close 4 permanently, and overwrite the audio libraries twice. After midnight in the dumpster area behind the building, you break the old handsets under your shoe and push them under a layer of black trash bags. Back upstairs, the operation looks smaller on the screen and safer in your chest. You accept both as the same thing and start again from there. You are in a new working apartment in Świętoszyń on the first Monday of October, bags still by the door, when you count the days since the last address and hit 6 weeks exactly. Outside the building, you photograph both sides of the street before you go in, because the rule is not move when afraid. The rule is move before fear becomes evidence. At a property intermediary near Lukianivska, you pay cash above asking for the next sleeping address and leave without writing your real name anywhere. 2 Tuesdays later, the same dark sedan sits on your street again, and by evening, you're carrying 1 suitcase into a Pechersk apartment that smells like old cooking and faces a blank brick wall. At 2 that Thursday, you walk to an all-night pharmacy on Velika Vasilkievska to buy melatonin and cetirizine because you have not slept more than 4 hours in 11 days. Under the fluorescent lights, the pharmacist asks if you are okay, and you hear how thin your yes sounds. Outside on the empty pavement, you scan the curb and parked vans and find nothing except the fact that your heart is still pounding. On Monday morning at a print shop near University Station, you redraft Andrei's protocol and cut active operations from 9 a week to 5. At the Podil desk that afternoon, you send the new limits, lengthen every research turnaround, and watch the volume drop faster than the money does. Back in the Pechersk apartment that night, you run the full exposure chain from memory with your shoes still on. Every name, every number, every path between source call and wallet. In the stairwell before dawn, you repeat it again while listening to the building settle around you. The act of checking no longer calms you. It only gives the day something strict enough to begin with. You are at the Obolon sublet in late November when the Bremer Consortium voice renders cleanly on the 4th pass from 40 minutes of CFO audio. At the kitchen table, you run it twice more through headphones and listen until the consonant edges stop sounding synthetic. The target is Stefan, treasury director for a mid-cap industrial group that can hide 1 more transfer inside its normal week. Over 2 evenings at the Podil desk, you pull their filings apart and build the cover story. Pending acquisition, 48-hour confidentiality window, urgency without panic. On Sunday, you fly to Bratislava with 1 backpack and 1 clean phone. In the hotel room before dawn, you read the script out loud once while the radiator knocks against the wall. At 7:30 in the business center, with the lobby still dark behind the glass doors, you place the call and hear Stefan answer on the second ring. He asks 3 questions. You answer all 3 before he finishes doubting the 4th. In the breakfast room, 9 minutes later, you watch the confirmation hit for 800,000 euros while a waitress refills orange juice at the next table. At the airport gate, you push the amount through the cold wallet app and feel pride arrive before caution can push it back out. On the flight to Kyiv, you close every active line from the window seat and work through the shutdown checklist on a phone already dead to the rest of the world. At the Patton Bridge after dark, you drop that phone into the Dnipro and hear nothing when it hits. In the taxi north, with the river gone black behind you, you let yourself admit that this is the first time the operation has felt bigger than luck. You are at the Obolon desk on a Thursday morning in February when Andrei messages you 1 word: abort. The confirmation screen has not updated in 11 minutes, and by the time you call up the trace, the Rotterdam operation is already dead because the target CFO rang the CEO's real mobile in Hamburg and got a live answer. At the center of the desk, you close every active session, snap both SIMs, and strip the wall charger out of the socket hard enough to leave the paint marked. In the rear stairwell, you hear your own breathing louder than the footsteps on the floors below, and take the steps 2 at a time. 2 blocks over on Hero of Dnipro, you get into the first cab that will take cash and spend the whole 40-minute ride to Pozniaki watching the side mirror for a second car. Nobody follows. In a borrowed apartment there that afternoon, You dump the bag on the floor, wipe the laptop, and wait long enough to be sure the silence stays ordinary. At a pharmacy vestibule on Vyshorodska after dark, you call Elena from a new number and she picks up on the first ring. She tells you the Dutch company has already reached its bank's fraud team and the account is flagged. On the pavement outside, with neon from the pharmacy sign cutting across the wet tiles, you tell her to go dark for 2 weeks. She says okay and hangs up without asking when you will call again. In a restaurant near Osokorki Metro, you force down half a plate of something hot and realize the part that stays with you is not the lost money. It is the moment in Hamburg when a man heard his own voice authorize a transfer he had never discussed and knew, before anyone else did, that the world had moved. You are at a cafe table on Volodimirska on a Tuesday morning in March when the Financial Times piece publishes. The headline names a European voice fraud network, puts the losses at 14 million, and says Europol opened a formal investigation in January. On the sidewalk outside, you lock your phone, light a cigarette you do not finish, and read the lines about persons of interest in Eastern Europe until the words stop meaning anything precise. Andrei calls 20 minutes later. You ignore the first 2 rings, answer the third, and hear him speaking from a tram stop 3 streets over, with his voice pitched thin and fast. You tell him to walk to the park on Shevchenko Boulevard and sit on a bench where he can be seen from both paths. When you reach the bench from the opposite side, he starts talking before you sit down and says, Europol means extradition. You stand again before he can keep going and make him walk with you toward the underpass kiosk by the boulevard. At the kiosk, while you buy gum you do not want, you tell him there is no case against him specifically because he never touched a transfer, a phone, or a wire. At the metro entrance a block later, he asks what the exit plan is, and you tell him there is no exit plan because people like you only leave when someone else closes the door. He stops there in the wind and looks at you long enough for you to see that he is filing the answer away, not accepting it. On the walk back through the park, you know you handled him badly before you reach the gate. At the working address, you sit at the desk without opening anything and count what can still be traced, what cannot, and how long that arithmetic survives once fear starts talking to investigators. You are at the Podil desk on a Thursday when Andrei stops answering. By Friday morning in the sleeping apartment in Pechersk, there is still nothing. No read receipt, no delivery confirmation, no sign that he is even ignoring you on purpose. You drive to his apartment in Sviatoshin in a rented car, checking mirrors and side streets. At the building entry, you ring the buzzer 3 times and hear only plumbing somewhere above you. His neighbor opens the front door from inside, and you catch it, climb to the 3rd floor, and find Andrei's apartment dark with no light under the frame. Back in the car across the street, you sit 40 minutes and watch every window that could matter. Nobody comes or goes from his floor. On Saturday, he sends one message, I'm out, and you read it standing at a kiosk on Kontraktova Ploshcha with a cooling coffee. At the Obolon desk that afternoon, you picture his research files spread on someone else's table and move every active asset across 3 new chains before you let yourself picture him talking. By evening, you have closed the 2 remaining operational addresses, wiped both machines, and walked out of each one for the last time. From a payphone near Libidska, you call Elena and get nothing. Crossing the Patton Bridge with river wind pushing at your coat, you try from a second phone and get nothing again. In a parking garage near Libidska, you turn both phones off and listen to the engine tick in the dark. At a red light leaving the garage, you count what you know against what you do not, and realize the gap has been closing for longer than you admitted. Back in the borrowed room before dawn, you sit on the edge of the bed and understand the math you built your life around has already failed. You just do not have the official proof yet. The boots on the stairs wake you before the door does. 4 seconds later, the frame comes in with the first officer, and you are already sitting up with your hands visible when he shouts for you to stay down. At the bedside, they cuff you, pull you to your feet in your socks, and move you into the living room while the rest clear the apartment in under 3 minutes. From the couch, you watch one officer bag the laptop, another lift both phones from the kitchen counter, and a third open the closet safe only after photographing it from 3 angles. In the hallway outside, they read your rights in Ukrainian and then in English, which tells you the arrest is meant for more than a report. Down the rear stairwell, they walk you fast enough that you never see the street, only railings and backs. In the van, nobody speaks during the 40-minute drive. At processing, they take your belt, watch, laces, and the pharmacy receipt in your coat pocket. In the interrogation room, the lead investigator sets a tablet in front of you with Andrei's folder open, 4 months of target files indexed, 14.7 million euros in transfers counted line by line. At the window, she reads the victim companies aloud like inventory. Back at the table, she reads the names that are not companies, including Margaret, 76, in Ohio, and waits for you to speak. You say nothing. In the fluorescent corridor afterward, walking to the holding cell, you think about the bench in the cold, the bridge over the river, the bathroom sink, and every point where you told yourself the distance was still wide enough. On the bunk in the cell, with dawn starting above the window, you finally understand that the distance only ever existed because you needed it to. If you want more stories like this one, subscribe.